Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're jumping right into a topic that's been getting a lot of buzz in the Philippines, but is also, let's be honest, kind of confusing for a lot of people. Real estate investment trusts, or REITs. So let's cut through all that noise and debunk some of the biggest myths out there.
So let me just start by asking you this. When you picture investing in a huge piece of property, like a massive shopping mall or a shiny skyscraper, what's the first number that pops into your head? Millions, right? A huge bank account? Well, you're going to want to stick around because the answer is probably not what you think.
Okay, let's dive right in. To really understand what REITs are, I think it helps to first talk about what they are not. We're going to go through the biggest misconceptions one by one and just bust them. First up, this is a classic mix-up. A ton of people think that buying into a REIT is pretty much the same thing as buying stock in a giant property developer, like an Ayala Land or an SM Prime. I mean, it makes sense on the surface, but it's not quite the whole story. So here's the real difference. When you buy a developer's stock, you're betting on their entire business. That's building new condos, selling off land, the whole shebang. A REIT, on the other hand, is way more focused. You're investing in a collection of buildings that are already built and are already collecting rent. Think about it this way. You're becoming the landlord, not the construction crew. You're collecting the rent, not pouring the concrete. And that difference leads us straight into the next big fear. You see all those headlines about a condo glut in the city, and you immediately think, oh no, all real estate investments are doomed. But see, this is where it's so important to understand the business model. REITs don't make their money selling condos to people. They earn their income from long-term leases on huge properties like office towers, shopping malls, and warehouses. So even if the residential market takes a hit, it doesn't really affect their main income stream. They're playing a totally different game. All right, let's tackle another one. There's this idea floating around that Filipino REITs are kind of a one-trick pony, right? That they're all just about leasing out office buildings to BPOs. But wow, that could not be further from the truth today. The REIT landscape is actually super diverse now. Yeah, there are offices, but there are also malls, giant industrial warehouses, and even, get this, land used for renewable energy, like the solar farms in CRIIT's portfolio. How cool is that? You could literally be investing in the future of green energy.
Okay, and the last myth in this section. This is a big one for anyone who's looking for some passive income. People tend to lump REITs in with those super safe, fixed income investments like government bonds or a time deposit at the bank.
But they are apples and oranges. I mean, just look at this. A bond gives you a fixed, predictable interest payment. REITs, though, are equities. They're stocks. Their dividends come from rental income, which can change, and their price can go up or down on the stock market. So what's the bottom line? Yeah, they do carry more risk, but they also offer something a bond just can't, the potential for your original investment to actually grow in value.
So, now that we've cleared up what REITs aren't, let's flip this around. Let's talk about the truths of investing in them. What do you actually need to know before you decide to put your hard-earned money in?
Let's be real. This is probably the biggest myth that stops most people in their tracks. It's this idea that real estate investing is some exclusive club for the super rich and that the ticket to get in costs millions. Well, prepare to have that myth completely and utterly shattered. Because REITs trade on the Philippine Stock Exchange just like any other stock, you can get started with as little as 1,000 pesos. Yeah, that's it. For less than what you might spend on a nice dinner out, you can become a part owner of premium Philippine real estate. Now, that accessibility is absolutely incredible, right? But it leads us to our final and maybe most critical myth. Because REITs are famous for paying out dividends, a lot of people just assume that that income is guaranteed, that it's going to show up like clockwork no matter what.
Okay, so here's the fact behind that myth. There is a law in the Philippines that says REITs must distribute at least 90% of their distributable income back to their shareholders. That legal requirement is what makes them such a potentially powerful tool for passive income.
However, and you have to hear this, this is the most important but of all, that payout is 90% of the income. And the income itself, which comes from rent, is not guaranteed. If tenants leave and occupancy rates drop, or if they have trouble paying rent, the total income shrinks. And guess what? Your dividend payment is going to shrink right along with it.
So after busting all those myths and getting down to the facts, let's just boil it all down. What's the real story with Philippine REITs? What's the one thing you should take away from all this?
Here it is, plain and simple. A Philippine REIT is an investment that lets you become a co-owner of a whole portfolio of properties that are already making money.
It's a way for you to earn potential dividends from the rent they collect without having to buy a whole building yourself. It basically lets you become a landlord, but just a few clicks on your phone.
At the end of the day, REITs were really created to open up real estate investing to everybody, not just the wealthy. So the final question I'll leave you with is this. Now that the myths are busted and the door is wide open, what are you going to build for your future?